Go Who's and welcome to the 4-3-4 defense. My name is Deuce Prince. I'm a Charlottesville, Virginia native, lifelong UVA football fan, and former college offensive lineman. And we have an incredible guest lined up for you today. A coach who played primarily at the University of Virginia. He is most known for his 1995 leadership in the upset against Florida State, is one of the few football coaches to have won a national title in college as well as a Super Bowl. You all know his name. You all love him. Mike Groh. Coach, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Deuce. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's good to have you on. And I saw you were back on grounds in Charlottesville recently, and I immediately texted you. I was like, "Hey, let's see if we can get something going." How was that being back in Charlottesville, speaking to the team, beating Coach Elliott?
It was great to be around. First of all, be on the grounds at University of Virginia, a place that's really done so much for me and shaped my life. But it's also cool to be around the football team and all those football coaches that showed up. I think 150, 200 high school football coaches, really well attended clinic. To be able to listen to Coach Elliott address those guys and have the opportunity to do the same and then watch them practice really was a fun afternoon for me.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you haven't, I'm sure you've been back since your last tenure coaching at Virginia, but the facility has changed so much.
Well, it's a beautiful facility. They've done a tremendous job with it. Carla and her team in the athletic department in terms of getting that money and then getting that thing put together and built. It's first class all the way. But not only the football facility, but all the athletic facilities over there on that part of the grounds, the north side of the grounds there, is really impressive. And just to drive around Charlottesville it has changed probably more in the last 10 or 15 years than it did in the 50 or 60 before that. So it's a really cosmopolitan town, a beautiful college town, and the grounds are simply immaculate.
Well, and you can speak to this just like I can. There are a few better places to grow up in Charlottesville. To our viewers, football coaches and the football world is very much a family because you're in new places, you're away from your roots typically, you're in new places, new things. For me, my dad is obviously my dad, but Coach Mike Groh is my football uncle. Coach, you knew me before I gained consciousness,
Yeah.
and so it is awesome to get you on the show, Coach. The 1995 season loomed large over 2025. It was a very big part of obviously the throwback uniforms. Maybe was the spiritual boost that we needed against Florida State and kind of powered everything going. Could you feel that connection when you were back on grounds and obviously when you were filming the promo for the uniforms in the game? Is that something you could feel growing that hadn't been there in the past?
Well, I think there was an energy. I wasn't down there all fall, Deuce, but when they asked me to be a part of that, I thought it was a great opportunity for me just to kind of reconnect with the program. Obviously, that's a night that resonates with so many thousand, UVA fans, people that were attending UVA, fellow students there, or alumni, or just fans of the team. We had tremendous support, and it's one of those nights that, if you are a UVA football fan, that you remember that night. You remember what you were doing. You remember if you were at the game. You remember the feeling that we all had. It was just a really unique and very special night, and it was fun to be able to kind of, in my own little way, be able to be a part of it through that video that we put together.
And every episode, I like to have a play that is either a favorite of mine or pertinent to one of our guests. Over here, it might be hard to make out the exact situation, but second quarter, Virginia's up 17-14. You're on the negative 28-yard line, and it's third and 12. And you are in that weak I formation set, and you see number two out there on the edge. Is that something where you looked at him and said, "All right, we've got the look," or was that a defined play for him to run the go route and then score that 74 or 78-yard touchdown?
Yeah, it was. We had Pete and I had some. It's funny because I talked to Pete while I was down there last Friday. Was going out to lunch with Jerry Capone, and as we're walking in the restaurant we're going to, Pete Allen called Jerry, and I just took the phone and I was kind of playing a joke on him. He didn't know who it was for a second there, and then we had some good laughs and reminisced about the good old days. But we had a really good connection, Pete and I did, and when the play came in on third down, I don't think at the time that Pete and I, either one of us really loved the play call, and he kind of used some choice words, and I agree with what he said. And I said, all right, let's go make a play. And to his credit, he got on top of those guys, got a step on them and was able to come down with a pass that, looking back on it, wasn't really that great. But he makes a play and stays on his feet, and we score. And you need those kind of explosive plays to win a game like that.
Well, and to your point on the play call, nowadays you really wouldn't see a 7, 8 man protection on 3rd and long. You typically, or the quarterback under center, they'd be in some kind of shotgun look. And the defense certainly wouldn't have 6 down linemen. Was when you saw an 8 man box, was that like we might have something here deep? Was that the immediate look that you
Well,
saw?
we just changed in the huddle, and so we were it was 3rd and 12. We were going to go with it, and came off and got on the headset with Obi. He goes, "You're lucky that worked, Junior." So
Well, and that game obviously had come off of 3 very close losses up to that point against Texas, Michigan, and North Carolina. I don't know how many teams are scheduling Texas and Michigan as their out of conference slate nowadays. That's going to very rarely happen again. But could you feel the excitement coming into that game? Or was it just kind of like we have the game plan, we're focused on that because both can lead to a win?
well, we knew we had a good team. We had a lot of confidence in the team that we had. Losing on the last play at Michigan, losing on the last play at Texas, we knew we could play with anybody. It was just a matter of kind of putting it together and playing our game. We had led in both of those games, and you can look back and say, play here, play there. We would have won those games, and we're compete for a national title. So we knew we had the talent, and we just had to go out there and put it together.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
the 1995 Florida State game, that's obviously become kind of the bit of a North Star for the Virginia football program. Kind of everything is kind of guiding at that night. But the goal of the 4-3-4 defense and a lot of what I've tried to do is to highlight that, hey, this is not just one night in 1995 or one night in 2005 or any of these or 2019. We have a lot of really good players and a lot of really good history. What would be another one of your favorite games from your playing career that fans of Virginia who are a little bit younger, who are getting into being a Virginia Cavalier fan, what game should they look up on YouTube and watch to try and like get a feel for what the real highs of the George Welsh era at UVA were?
Well, Deuce, you're asking me to go deep in the archives here. Some games that I probably haven't thought of in a long time. In those kind of seminal moments in program history, and certainly Coach Welsh, the architect of really UVA football tradition, tremendous man to play for, a guy who really built the program from the ground up. I know that there's some other ones that people would talk about, but during my time there, a few that stand out would be the road win at Clemson.
Mm.
That was the first time that I think UVA had ever won at Clemson, and we were able to go down there and beat them on the road. When I was playing, another win would be following the Florida State game. We still had a couple more games to play. We had to go to Maryland, and I think we were down 18-0 before, or something of that nature, before we'd even gotten the ball. We fumbled a couple kickoffs early. They were able to capitalize and score, and we fell behind, and we dug ourselves out of that hole and were able to win. Which really gave us the share of the ACC title. So
Hmm.
without that win, it's kind of like the Miracle on Ice. They beat the Russians in the game before the game, gold medal game. So we had to go out and play another game in order to share the title there with Florida State, and we were able to get that done. That was a big win. Winning down in Blacksburg, my junior year, my true fourth year, beating the Hokies down there. That was a big one. Always enjoyed beating the Hokies, and anytime you beat Carolina, those wins were great. So
That's awesome. I mean, it's one of the real gems of Virginia football history, that era under George Welsh. Now, when you're coming back to coach at the University of Virginia, obviously you had finished your playing career and then you had worked in the financial sector for a little while. How was it an easier transition back into coaching being back at the University of Virginia, or was it maybe more expectations, feeling like, oh, I have to be hitting the ground immediately running?
I was just a young coach and just trying to figure out what being a coach was all about, and had great mentors or fellow assistant coaches on that staff. You look at the success that some of those guys have gone on to have since we were all together. We had a really close knit staff, and was able to emulate guys that have been in the business. Obviously watching my dad for a long time, but
Mm,
it's different when you're going to work and you're having to learn how to do it. So that was a big part of it. Just trying to do a good job and figure things out on the run and try to be the very best version of myself for the players. And I've talked to several of them since, and just told them, man, I wish I'd have been able to know more and been a better coach for you when I was coaching you. Because if I knew then what I know now, I know I could have done a better job. But that's kind of the process for all of us. And I was lucky to do it in a place that really meant so much to me. At the
mhm.
University of Virginia, bleed orange and blue, and so from that standpoint, it was really comfortable, and obviously very comfortable living in Charlottesville, and so many people that I knew, and we're still big supporters of the program.
Absolutely. And, my introduction to Virginia football growing up in that building, is from your coaching tenure. So what would be some of your favorite games from your coaching half, the second side? So you've got covered the player side, now the coaching side. What are some of your favorite games from that era?
Okay, well, you mentioned the Florida State game earlier in
Hmm.
the podcast here. I think it was '05. That was
Yep.
that was a big win for the program. I think beating Penn State in our first year. That was a really significant win. I think it was to close out the season for us. It was a game that had been rescheduled due to 9/11.
Yes.
And Antoine Womack went off 30 some carries, 150 some yards after really missing most of the year with an injury. To be able to beat Penn State at home, that was a huge win. Beating Miami and closing down the Orange Bowl was certainly a very memorable game, and one that, if you're a Virginia fan, that you think back on very fondly, with all the old Hurricanes that were there that night, and we were able to really clear out the Orange Bowl by the start of the fourth quarter.
Yep.
That was a huge road win. Shoot, beating the Hokies. We never lost to Carolina when we were coaching there. We beat them every year that we were
Yep.
coaching. So that's at the time. I don't know what it is now, Deuce. You'd have to look, but oldest rivalry in the South. It's been played over 100 sometimes. So that was always a big game. It was circled on our schedule every year. Those are the ones that jump forward right here. Again,
Hmm.
haven't thought about some of these moments in a long time, but they're certainly right there.
Absolutely. And finishing up at Virginia, then you head off to Alabama, then Louisville, and then off to the NFL. What was the experience of going from college to the NFL in that in from the coaching perspective? I kind of lived it with my dad, seeing him go from the college ranks over to the NFL. It's a different coaching style than in college, and I think that a lot of fans don't necessarily know a whole lot about that transition.
Well, you're 100% right. I mean, in some cases, you're coaching, a veteran player that maybe been playing for 10 years and knows a lot of football and knows what good coaching looks and sounds like. Those guys are just looking for, one or two things that you can give them that'll help them be, a little bit better than they were the year before. So
Mm,
they're locked into everything that you're saying. Coaching college football, you're probably the best coach that player in the meeting room has had.
yeah.
Coming out of high school, and that's no disrespect. It's just a graduation, and I think that's the case when you try to make that leap, and you got to earn their respect by what you know and how organized you are and the details that you demand, and you got to be firm and fair with those guys. And I think if you do that, then they respect you. So that was certainly a bit of a transition. I walk into a
Mhm.
room with Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffries, Earl Bennett, those kind of guys, veteran guys that had been playing, or in some respects they were in different places in their career. But a guy like Brandon Marshall, he was the challenge every day. So I had to be ready every single day, or I knew that he'd have a comment about it, he'd have an opinion about it. So that was really good for me, and that made me be sharp every single day.
Mm. And the NFL thing is so interesting. Do you feel, just from your observations, what you've seen, that has now crept a little bit more into the college game with players being paid now with a little bit more freedom of movement? Do you see that transition coming down a little bit more into the college ranks now?
The transition in what kind of way, Deuce?
So the is there is are do you see that mentality coming more out of the college ranks now as well because of the fact that players are now being able to see some money and they're able to transition if they don't necessarily like their coaching at first and they haven't kind of learned to sit with it and understand where the coach is coming from.
Well, having not coached in college football, I can understand the question,
Hmm.
and I think it makes sense to ask that kind of question. I do think that kids are very quick to pull the trigger and to leave a situation where,
Hmm.
and maybe you're not going exactly the way they'd hoped to go initially,
Yeah.
and are less likely to stick it out and grind through it and persevere, and be a backup and learn how to be a good player. Part of this is guys just got to learn how to play the game of football, and they're playing against guys bigger, stronger, faster than they've ever played against. They're asked to learn schemes that are more complex than what they ran in high school, and the volume that they're asked to learn is, two, three, four times what they had to learn in high school. So there
Mm.
is a growth and a learning curve process for all these players in their development, and they all develop at different times. The expectations that are on these guys, coming out of high school because the microscope is on and there's so much talk in the media about, 5 stars, 4 stars, all these guys. And so the fan bases and the people that are really watching are talking about these guys before they show up and assuming that they're just going to walk on whatever campus it is and step right in and be the best player on their team again. And it really doesn't always work that way. It does sometimes, but more often than not, there is a growth process and a maturation process, and they're going to college classes now, and there's more expectation in terms of their educational responsibilities and all the things that go into that. In addition to trying to be a college football player, so I think we give those guys some grace, and I like to see those guys really try to stick it out. Try to give it 2 or 3 years at wherever they go, because the continuity and the development and the teaching that they're getting will only serve to help them be a better football player in most cases.
Absolutely. I can tell you from personal experience, the game was at light speed for me when I got off to college until really the spring ball my sophomore year, and then the game began to finally slow down. The game really, especially in the trenches where there are a lot of things happening rapidly at the same time pre-snap. It takes you a season and then a spring ball for the game to really start to slow down. Was that a similar experience for you getting into college football? Was that something where the game started to slow down at a certain point, and then you were like, "Oh, I've got it. I've got the answer key now."
No, absolutely. I mean, you were a lot faster and smarter than I was, Deuce. It took me 3 years probably. So, I mean, just trying to focus on really what I needed to focus on and figure out what my process was that would allow free me up mentally to let my athletic ability take over. But
Mhm.
that part of it took probably longer than it should have, and but eventually I found my footing, and then once I did find a process that worked for me, I was able to play pretty consistent and at a high level for 2 years. So I'm as good a case as any to talk about, and the quarterback position is very unique in terms of all the things that are being asked of a quarterback. That's been talked about over and over again, but we all process it differently. Look at a guy like Sam Darnold, who he had to go through his journey in the NFL to be able to come out the other side and play like he
Yeah,
has pretty consistently here for the last whatever it is 2 or 3 years. But it took a while for him to get there, and obviously he's a guy that a lot of teams would like to have now, but just a few years ago, nobody wanted him. So that's as good an example as I could think of.
absolutely. It's and also 18-7 as a starting quarterback. That's a pretty darn good record overall. Plus two bowl wins to boot, including a Peach Bowl over Georgia. The University of Virginia just played Missouri in the Gator Bowl. I was there. It was an awesome win. Is there there is a little something extra to being able to go up against SEC competition, especially Georgia in that era? Like, was that a big confidence boost for y'all seeing like, okay, like we've seen that we can play with everyone, but there is something a little different about the SEC.
Yeah, and I don't remember in particular. I mean, you knew who the good programs were. You really watched and looked at the top 25, like,
Hmm.
where we ranked or not. And like I told you before, we had a lot of confidence in ourselves. and the
Hmm.
kind of team that we had. We had a lot of, future NFL players on that roster. So we felt like we could play against anybody. Now, playing against Georgia and basically a home game in the Peach Bowl,
Yeah.
that was a little bit different. But we had been to Michigan, we'd been to Texas. We had played, at Clemson, we played at Florida State. We knew what big time atmospheres were about, and
Yeah.
we weren't intimidated by that. I do feel like we got skunked a little bit based on the way they were calling out some of the things that we put in just for that game. So I'm not, crying about it, and that's part of gamesmanship and airtoss and things like that in order to gain an advantage. But we were able to be resilient in that game. They score late, and then we score, then they score and take the lead back, and then they kick it off, and then Pete goes the distance again. So there's that guy Pete Allen showing up in a big way for us in a big moment.
Absolutely. Big plays were just all over the place. Was there a greater safety blanket that you have ever seen, or safety valve, or like, if I know one thing, I got this guy, then Tiki Barber. That must have been great as a
No
quarterback
doubt.
to have him.
Well, I had the best seat in the house. So our offensive line, those guys did a great job, all season long. And when I'd see that hole open up and then watch Tiki hit it and stick his foot in the ground, I'm like, oh boy, man. I mean, the guy was just really, really special. Obviously, did it in the NFL for a long time at a very high level, and one of the best to ever do it, or wear a New York Giant uniform. So proud to say that I was teammates with Tiki.
Absolutely. And it's great that you mentioned the offensive line. Obviously, being an offensive lineman, I cover this, and the offensive line has been a big part of the current Virginia level of success that we've seen. When I think of kind of what Virginia can hang its hat on going into this next era of college football and like what our identity is, I think the identity is, and we should really emphasize that it is the offensive line, because as a player, you played behind some awesome offensive linemen, coached some of the best offensive linemen in the country at Virginia, and now we have a bunch of returning production. Like I see us as that being what we can hang our hat on offensively. Is that what you saw in 2025 as well?
I know that just talking to their coaches, last week when I was there, they feel very confident and very strongly about the talent that they have at the offensive line position.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know as much about the roster construction as you or they do at this moment,
Hmm.
but they spoke in very, very glowing terms about the guys that they have coming back
Hmm.
and the kind of players that they think that those guys will be, and they think that they have depth. It is a position that we have recruited to, a position of strength. Really since your dad was the offensive line coach there, and maybe there's been a little bit of a lull here recently, but I think that they feel very confident about the group that they have right now.
Absolutely. Mike, we have a question that we ask every guest here on the 434 defense, and it might be the most important question that we ask any of our guests. Mike,
Okay.
what's your Bodo's order?
Oh, geez. My Bodo's order. I think. I mean, it's been a long time, Deuce. So this probably isn't going to be that interesting, but I can easily just say an everything bagel with cream cheese. I used to do a cinnamon raisin, depending on what time of day. A cinnamon raisin with honey and butter. Obviously, a little bit of a breakfast order.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't remember the particular sandwiches I used to get, but those two come to mind.
You and James are on the same wavelength with the cinnamon raisin, and I think I'll give you a mulligan because y'all were probably in the office way too early before Bodo's was opened
Yeah,
in
I
Charlottesville.
wasn't making any Bodos runs before work, but if you'd have given me some prep on that, I could have had a better answer for you. But yeah, that was
It's
good.
kind it's a good like little surprise question, and it always brings someone back to being in Charlottesville on a game day or something like that. So
Yeah,
this coming fall, if you're ever in Charlottesville, I'm probably going to be at the North Carolina game. If you are in town for that, we'll have to make a Bodo's run together.
I'd love to do it.
And Coach, you've coached in the NFL now for going on 12 years, I believe. You've been in the college game for a really long time. Where do you see the game going in the next couple of years from where your seat is?
In the college game or the
in the
pro game?
college game?
In the college game, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of change here in the college
Hmm.
football landscape. Obviously, everybody's saying that the current model is not sustainable
Hmm.
financially for most of these programs, and I think that everybody's recognizing that the way it's set up right now doesn't really make sense. I think they're trying to rein in the rules in terms of and restrict the player's ability to be able to leave and
Hmm.
transfer quite so frequently and easily. And I think that they're going to figure those kinds of things out, from an individual program standpoint. And then I think everybody's fully bought in on the playoff system and where they land in terms of how many teams are going to be involved. I'm sure there's going to be another expansion. There's just an appetite for the product, and it certainly is. We're in the middle of March Madness right now with the Final Four here this weekend, and everybody loves these tournaments, and it gives
Yeah.
everybody hope, and it gives people something to play for towards the end of the season. And I can speak from experience in the NFL. I mean, there is no juice when you are in the hunt late in the season or you're preparing for a playoff game like playoff juice in the NFL. It is just
Abs-
a whole nother level of intensity, of energy, and focus that really is the reason why we do what we do.
And you've, many people coach or play their entire careers without ever seeing the championship game or anything like that. You had the opportunity to both coach in the college ranks for a national title and the NFL for a Super Bowl. Obviously those Alabama teams were steamrollers going through college football in that era. But the Super Bowl, you kind of had to figure it out with a little deft touch on there. What was your favorite moment in that very, very special Philadelphia Eagles season as a coach there?
Well, I don't know how much time we got here, Deuce, but just to talk about the national championships real quick, was fortunate to be able to work for Coach Saban down there at Alabama. And all three of my years there, we played for a national championship. The
Hmm.
first year, 2009, was really special. We were undefeated playing Texas in the Rose Bowl. And I always tell people, if you're going to play one game, you want to play in the granddaddy of them all. You want it to be there in Pasadena as the sun's going down. It was HD right before there was HD there in 2009, and they had a great team, and we did too. So we were able to win that game. And walking off that field, I can remember thinking like, this is never going to happen again. It's like, holy cow! Like, how lucky am I? And then I left for a year. Went to Louisville, like you mentioned, and came back in 2011. Coach Saban brought me back to Alabama, and we played for a national title again. We played LSU in
Hmm.
New Orleans, and obviously, one of the situations where it's almost like you're the away team again. And
Right.
we had played them earlier in the year and lost. Again, pro players everywhere, and we dominated that game. And I said the best place to celebrate and party after you win a national title is certainly in Bourbon Street.
Right.
No place could beat that. And then go back to back national titles. And the last year there, I was at Alabama. We played in the Orange Bowl, so I got to play in three of the most prestigious bowl games that you could play in, and the best place for the families to spend the week. Which, if you don't know, your families go down a week before. They got to sit by the pool at the Fountain Blue for a week while we were out grinding, trying to figure out how to beat Notre Dame. But three great experiences. I know that wasn't the point of your question, but to be a part of the first Super Bowl in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history was certainly really special. And the way that we did it, and the kind of team that we had, and the adversity that we had to overcome there late in the season, the way that Nick Foles really just stepped in, and the team rallied around Nick, and to watch him really just step in and be very cool and confident, and really know who he was as a player, and be
Yeah.
very comfortable with who he was. And I think that made our job as coaches easier, because he said, hey, just give me these, and whatever the number was, but give me these 12 pass concepts. You could
Mm.
dress them up however you want, but like, if you just give me and you call these over again, like, I'll find you a completion. And to watch him work through that process, and obviously that was different than the starter, and everybody's different, but we were able to quickly rally around Nick, and not make an excuse as to why we couldn't, but decided, hey, look, this is something that we are in position to do, and we're going to get it done. And it was just a really really cool team. And if you've ever been on one of those kind of teams, it was just one of those that everybody really enjoyed being with each other, going to work every day, embrace the work and the grind and everything that went into trying to do something that nobody thought we could do, and then to be able to go and play at the level that we played at,
Yeah.
in a Super Bowl, execute at the highest level that we had executed. And I think we did that, certainly starting with the Minnesota game. We kind of struggled in the first half of the Atlanta game, but then the second half we played a whole lot better. And then we steamrolled, Minnesota out of there, and we were able to get to the Super Bowl. And we kept that momentum going over those 2 weeks of preparation. And to do it against a dynasty like, the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady on the other sideline, and prepare the way that we did, and then call the plays that we believed would work for the reasons that we believed that they would work in the right moment. And then the guys go out there and execute. And then that party, that parade in Philadelphia is something I'll never forget.
You can't beat that. And don't sleep on that stadium in Minnesota. That sucker gets loud. That place was I went to a Lions Vikings game up there, and with the Citadel, we always played at a SEC or ACC team for our kind of money game, and so we went to Clemson, went to Alabama. Minnesota was up there.
Yeah, it's a cool stadium. They did a great job with it. They really did. It's unique.
And that awareness on the side of Nick Foles, that I think that's something that goes so underrated about that Super Bowl. It takes such a level of awareness to understand, like, I can be excellent at these 12 and I know that I am. And instead of trying to mask more skill at something or something, whatever, just knowing that and saying, let's go out and execute these 12 things. Like, that's just such a high level of self-awareness that probably made game planning for a quarterback like that so much easier.
Yeah, it really did. And I think it simplified it for us. And honesty and being forthright about, like, these are the concepts and I feel really good about. Just call it again. I mean, it just goes to show that, when you get in the NFL, you obviously, as a coach, you're trying to do everything you can to impact the game in a positive way.
Hmm.
And there's everybody has all the schemes, and you see all the playbooks. I got them all stacked up back here. Matter of fact, this is a 2019 Eagles book right here. But I mean, look at the size of that. And for the player just to say, this is all I need to be successful. And if we just do this, I'll be able to see the defense. I'll be able to recognize it. And not saying the ball's going to go in the same place every time, but we're not going to get bored with completions, and just keep finding us a completion. Let's keep moving the ball down the field, keep their offense off the field, particularly, playing against a guy like Tom Brady and shoot Kirk Cousins at the time. They were dynamic on offense. So be able to keep their offenses off the field and have the production that we had, put the points up, really took the pressure off the defense.
I mean, and it's incredible. And hopefully for that Rose Bowl against Texas, hopefully, I think my dad might have sprinkled some of the anti-Texas magic luck that that we had had at Kansas State.
Yeah.
Obviously, our family moved off to Manhattan when my dad got the Kansas State job. Thankfully, opened up the offensive coordinator role for you, and then we went out and beat Texas twice for our viewers that don't know. And then
Right.
Mike went out to Alabama, and we stayed undefeated against the Longhorns.
Yeah. Well, and coaching wise, I talked about the one I lost down there, but as a player, but yeah.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But yeah.
But Coach, thank you so much for your time. I've appreciated having you on here. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, it's been a great interview, man. You're doing great at this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. To our viewers, if you've made it this far, it's clear that you love UVA football and appreciate what we do here on the 4-3-4 defense. In fact, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching once again, and go Hoos.